Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Strategy Gaming Dojo, where we find, learn, and play one more turn of the great strategy games. And today we are going to continue on with our Let's Play of Gary Grigsby's War in the Pacific Admirals Edition. This is now episode number 16 of this Let's Play. We are still in the Allied setup phase. That's part of what makes this an incredible game, part 16, and we're still in the setup phase, but it's been a lot of fun. And this time we're going to be jumping kind of all over the map. I'll probably call this Noumea and New Zealand because they're kind of the more important places that we'll be setting up this time. But there are a lot of different locations around the map with some interesting things, a few things that we have not done before that, I like to point those out now as we go around the map and talk about maybe some things that didn't come up in the tutorials or haven't come up in the Let's Play yet. But we're moving right along. I was looking at the spreadsheet, at Cole's spreadsheet today, and I believe that after this, we do all of the off-map bases. So we will be heading up here to the north, to Aden, to Abaddon, and then down the side here to Cape Town and over to the Panama Canal, and then also up to the east coast of the US, where there are a lot of planes um, up here for training purposes. For the most part, we rail some of those out to the west coast, but they will be doing a lot of training here on the east coast as well. So anyway, the point of me going down that road is that we are within a few episodes of completing the spreadsheet and having the setup of the first turn all done. And we will not be setting up the Soviet troops. When I play the AI, I just don't take the time to do that. The reason being is there's little to no chance that the Soviet Union will become involved. Um, and we're not going to, try to do anything to get them involved. And I'm going to assume the AI is not going to either. If the AI does pull out of the bases where it has to stay to keep the Soviets out of the war, then we'll have to scramble around, I guess, and we'll have very untrained Soviet troops. But really, I'm just not going to worry about it, and honestly, I don't think you should either. But unless you want to be extra cautious, because anything crazy can happen, right? But I will not be setting those up. So then eventually we'll get to hit the end of the orders phase. And when we do that, I will probably live stream that for an hour or so. We can, go through the results. We can kind of ooh and awe together and say, oh my gosh, this ship got blown out of the water. These planes went down, but we did take out some zeros, celebrate and also commiserate in our misery as we play through the first turn. I do have a Twitch channel. I have not used it yet. I was saving it for something like this, but I may just stream it on YouTube. And of course, either way, it will be up on the channel. It's not like you have to be there. You will get to see my mug for an hour or so as I go, no. But anyway, we're coming up to that point. I'll announce that when I'm expecting that to be and schedule that this coming week. We're fairly close. I think maybe we have 4 or 5 more episodes of setup. We got through quite a bit this time. So let's jump right into it. And tonight we start with the Maldives, the Maldive Islands. A beautiful place to visit, I hear. I have never been there. I will say that, I wasn't exactly sure that it was right off the southern tip of India. I knew that it was in the Indian Ocean, but I didn't realize that it is where it is. But here it is. And we have North Mail here, Adu, and Diego Garcia, which is considered part of the Maldive island chain. Diego Garcia is interesting to me. It comes up a lot if you follow the U.S. military, because the United States Air Force has a massive base at Diego Garcia, where a lot of bombing missions or a lot of bombing missions have come out of there into, I believe it can reach all the way into Afghanistan and Iraq from Diego Garcia. But I do know that there is a huge air base there now for the United States military. But anyway, be that as it may, there's not a whole lot to say about Diego Garcia, Adu, or North Mail for our purposes here. You know, each one of these, we have some supply coming out from India. You may remember, I think Cochin supplies some of this stuff out here, but you know, we're not really building mail up. Adu, let's see. Yep, we're building up some forts or some fortifications. Okay. Um, you know, really, if the Japanese get back this far, you've got big, big, big problems. And so, you know, we're not really doing a ton, but we are building up the airfield and the fortifications here at Diego Garcia. But there's just not a lot out here. You've got these engineers um, at Diego, at Adu, you've got a base force. And at North Mail, I do believe you have nothing. I just can't remember. I think maybe we bring a base force out here, but off the top of my head, I can't remember. So anyway, I mean, it's a light build in the Maldives. Not a whole lot to talk about. You get it. If the Japanese are operating out here, it potentially means Colombo has fallen and we're in big, big, big trouble at that point. You know, if they, I guess if the Japanese did, you know, go Calcutta to Madras and then over here to the western portion of India, we're also in big trouble. Either way, if we're worried about the Maldives, other than a random sub or something like that showing up out here. If we're worried about the Maldives, we probably are in big, big trouble in more important places than the Maldives. So we'll kind of leave that as it is. Now let's go over to the Marianas. The Marianas, oh gosh, I always have such a hard time finding them because I don't expect a U.S. base to be here. You know, obviously it's Guam. You know, I do expect it to be there, but you don't expect to see all of these Japanese flags around it, right? I mean, these poor guys, uh, they hear that Pearl Harbor has been bombed, that we're now at war with Japan, and the guys on Guam are like, uh-oh, uh, how many guys do we have out here? We have 109 infantry and 700, so we have approximately 900 troops out here between infantry and support, and these guys are like, oh boy, this is not where you want to be in position when a war starts with the people whose flags that is, right? I mean, they're just completely surrounded. That base force, you know, look, they are going to be prisoners of war or dead, unfortunately. Now we do have this penguin out here, this minesweeper. We're running this down to Moresby. I've got this ASW Moresby. As you'll see, it's going to Hollandia first, and here is Hollandia. I think the reason for that is I didn't really look. We don't really have that big of a fuel problem. It could probably make it all the way around here to Moresby, but we're just doing a little stop here first. Okay, cool. You know, we'll maybe get a little fuel if there is any fuel. Yeah, there's 100, so there's really nothing else here. So we might as well go get their fuel and then take off around the island. We did set Moresby as the home port, so once it comes here, maybe tops off the tanks, and it'll come around to Moresby, and we'll use that as a minesweeper over here. As I said, those troops at Guam at this point is hopeless. We will have to avenge, what's the name of this base force? The Guam U.S. Base Force Engineer Unit. We will have to avenge their demise someday, as we will probably come back to take Guam, hopefully in 1943, late 42, early 43. That might be ambitious, but we will be coming back to Guam. As you can see, why Guam was important. Um, it can build into a level 5 port if you wanted it to. It'd be hard to get a ton of supplies here, but it's a level 2, it's not nothing, and you can get the airfield up, and so it was a one of these, bounce along bases for the US as they started to put pressure and ring, the Japanese islands. And so we'll probably be back at Guam sometime in the hopefully not too distant future, although I guess that is more than a year and some away. The Marshall Islands are next, okay? And so the Marshall Islands are. Where are the Marshall Islands? What? 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 Why can't I find the darn Marshall Islands? I hate when this happens. Now, I know we've got some subs out here for one thing, so they shouldn't be too hard to find. Here we go. I believe this is what we're looking for. And it is. The reason I had problems finding that is because I forgot that Wake Island is considered part of the Marshall Islands. Now, the Marshall Islands have been taken by the Japanese. Um, this is kind of where they come closest to the Allies. We have these two Australian bases out here that really don't have. Well, now this is interesting. We have these are Australian bases. Okay, they are Australian units. Okay, I was just checking that. These two we are going to try to save and get them out of here, but they are very, very close to the Marshalls, and the Marshalls we're including Wake Island in that. I don't know if that's actually correct. Is it part of the Marshall Islands chain? I don't know. Obviously, I'm trying to cover up for the fact I just, whipped around here and couldn't find the Marshall Islands for a bit. But it looks a little far out to be part of this island chain. Anyway, whatever. Um, let's go to Wake Island. Now, Wake Island, if we go back a little bit here and we look at Pearl Harbor, Johnston, up to Wake. Now you have Midway. So, you're starting to see here, you've got some of your, you know, Pearl Harbor to Johnston, Johnston to Midway, Midway to Wake. Now, Wake is really, besides Guam, which is going to fall very, very quickly, Wake is about as far west as we go, at least down here in the Pacific. Now, out here in the Alaskan island chains, the Aleutians, we do get quite a bit west, but I mean, if you just saw it right there, actually, Wake is even further west than that. So Wake Island, very hard to defend out here. It's not very close to anything. It doesn't have a lot going on. It's got a port 1, it's got an airfield 3, both on 0 zeros, right? So this is this is one of those archipelagos. There's just not a whole lot happening at Wake. You have stacking limits here. You can only put 6,000 troops on anyway. But the big kind of thing to look at around Wake anyway are the submarines. We have two nice US subs out here. We have the Tambor, and we also have, I believe this is the Triton. It is. So we have the Triton and the Tambor, and you can see the missions they're running here. There's the Tambor. There's the Triton all around Wake. Why is that? Well, we've got that, and you see here, here's another submarine patrol zone because we've got that Japanese task force that's out in here somewhere. We'll know very quickly where it is and get some eyes on it as soon as we hit next turn. But it's going to be most likely sailing straight back west, steaming this way, and many times a Japanese player will just pick off Midway and Wake if they can. Why not? They've got they've got more forces than you out here. They've got better forces than you out here. They might as well just pick off a couple to them eastern sitting islands, right? That they can start to island hop themselves. And so you'll see them come to Midway many times and definitely Wake very early in the game. So we've just got some submarines here, lurking. Hopefully, they can get some big prey. We shall see. And so that's really what was going on. Obviously, there's not a whole lot for us to talk about in the Marshall Islands because those are Japanese islands at this moment. So, um, it's really just Wake up here in these two submarines. You've got this force here, the engineers. You've also got this 1st Defense Battalion that are Marines. Yeah, it's okay. It's not a terrible this is not a terrible battalion. Got big guns here. We've also got these fighters, and we've got 12 of them. They are F4, F3 Wildcats, so pretty decent fighters at the start of the game. We've got them up in a cap at 20,000 feet. It's going to be tough sledding if the Japanese come in any kind of force with zeros because the Wildcat will be run around by zeros and the experienced Japanese pilots. And you add those two things together, these guys are probably doomed. Now you see the maximum range is 18. Well, let's think about that for a minute. There's really no place for this squadron to go. You can't jump them out of here anywhere. You could sail you could sail the carrier over to within 18 and try to get them out. It is certainly not worth putting the Lexington at risk to go get 12 fighters. So, eh, sorry guys, but hopefully take some zeros out with you. But those 12 fighters probably not going to last that long. So again, that's Wake. That's the Marshall Islands. Next up was Mindanao. So, like I said, we are jumping all over the place from the Maldives um, out to the Marshall Islands to Wake, and now we come over here to Mindanao. Now, you remember last time we set up Luzon. Was that last time? Yeah, no, or maybe it was 2 times ago. But we set up Luzon recently, including Manila, Clarkfield, Bataan, the big places here. Now we're setting up the southern island of this Philippines island chain, and this has Cagayan and Davao, really. These are the two big, they're not big. Relatively speaking, they're on this island, they're big, but these are the two locations. Now, Cagayon's not terrible. It's Port 2 airfield going towards the 6. I think most of the places out here we're just building fortifications. That there's not a whole lot to do. The Japanese are going to be coming to the northern island to Luzon immediately. And then generally, they're going to either hit down here near Legazpi and move this way, down here into the late Gulf, which became famous for other reasons right before the Vietnam. Anyway, let's not talk about the late Gulf incident. Um, became famous for other reasons, but sometimes they will come here because you have Cebu, which is okay for out in this area of the world. But many, many times they will come down here and land at Davao, or at least right by here, and take the southern island. If you were a Japanese player and you kind of think of the situation here, I don't know, let's go to the big map. Okay. And you think about the situation here, hitting here and hitting here seems like a pretty good idea, right? You have to know all of these American forces and ships are going to be trying to get south as fast as they can. If you can hit here on the southeastern flank, get yourself established. Now all of a sudden, if you've got some air superiority here, if you've got, if you can bring in other ships, it makes a lot of sense to get to the South Island. Up here at the north, you're like, well, that's great. I mean, you want to take Manila, you want to take Clark Field, of course. They're the two most important locations in all of the Philippines. But ultimately, the U.S. is running from you. So if you can kind of hit on both ends, and that's what you'll see Japanese players do quite often. This also is, a gateway to Tarek and Balikpapan. And so, landing down here, getting this Davao base allows a deeper push over here into Borneo. Um, Now you remember we've got some things going on here at Jalo. We've got destroyers out here. We've got a lot of things going on, but there's really no way to defend Mindanao. It is what it is. I mean, the Japanese can have their way with us this close to the home islands if they really want to take something. And so if they want Mindanao, they're going to come take Mindanao. And 90% of the time they do come and take that for the reasons I just mentioned, really especially these two ports right here. But there are a couple of cool things I actually, wanted to talk about when it comes to Mindanao. One is that we have this group of Catalinas that's going to be flying over Babel Doab. Wow, I sounded good when I said that. Babel Doab. Or, nah, it's probably not Doab. It's probably Dob. Babel Dob. Okay. Um, we are flying recon down here, right? Well, we're calling it naval search. It's really a recon mission. Why is that? Because out of Cagayan, we have two squadrons of big old B-17 fortresses. We have this squadron with 7 and 1 on the maintenance, and we've got this squadron with 8. So we've really got 8 and 8 here of the big heavy level bomber, the B-17D. What are we doing with these guys? Well, we're doing airfield attack at Babeldob, okay, with this squadron, and we're doing port attack down at Babeldob with this squadron. And so that's pretty cool, right? We've got two squadrons of B-17s that are coming to hit the airfield and to hit the port here. So as I mentioned several times during these videos, we don't have to play 100% defense. Now, most of what we're going to be doing early in the game is defensive. It has to be, it should be, it's historical, and it's also what a smart player would do. You're outmatched at the start. Your job is to slow the Japanese down, make life a little difficult for them, and look for opportunities. Well, this is an opportunity. We've got two squadrons. If you look down here, as far as we can tell in the Palau Islands, the Japanese do not have any air cover down here. Now they have what appears to be quite a few ground troops. We've got spotted troops. Now this goes into detection, and we talked a little bit about detection during the basic tutorial. But this detection and these numbers, the first number is your actual detection on the base, which is a 4 out of 10. The second number is what is possible given the runs that you've made over the base, what you could possibly know about the base. Your maximum is 4, okay? And so the first number, that first 4, will degrade over time, right? So let's say we fly a mission over Babeldob, okay, and the second 4 there pops up to a 5 or a 6 because now we've upped the potential of what we can get out of detection. But then let's say we don't run anything over that base for a long time. The actual detection will start to go down to a 3 or a 2. So it may be a 2.5 or a 2.6 at that point. And so that's kind of how detection levels work. This is, again, on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, be aware though, before you run the first turn, these are notoriously unreliable. As someone put in the comments, you just can't trust the detection levels you're seeing on turn 1. As we get more info in, as we start to fly more missions over these places, then you can start to say, oh, okay, here's the actual detection. I either have a good idea what's here or I have no idea what's here or somewhere in between. But really, The time to determine that is not on the first turn. So even though this says detection 4 of a possible 4, who knows, really? The Japanese may have planes down here. I never like to say, oh, well, having played the game before, that's kind of a cheat, right? Um, I, I don't remember actually whether the Japanese have any planes within the area. And when I say within the area, do they have something over here in Saipan that could potentially come touch us running these B-17s down? Maybe, I don't know. I just followed the spreadsheet. Um, I'll be quite honest with you, when I play, and I'm not doing it for a let's play or something like that, I get these B-17s out of here. I don't even mess around with this. Now we're going to do this because it's on the spreadsheet. I think it's kind of fun. It's fun for a let's play because it gives us something to look forward to in that first turn. We're going to go hit this base, but the minute these guys return here, we're going to hop them out in turn 2, get them down to Australia, and then we'll see where we go from there. But we will be getting them out of this Mindanao area. No reason to have these guys destroyed on the airfield or destroyed, running bombing missions that just don't matter. Now, the reason we would hit Babeldob is, again, keep the Japanese player off balance, maybe cause some damage, slow them down a bit. You have some places over here like Ternate, Manado, Sarong, and especially down here in Rabaul that we'll be talking about a little bit later, that maybe, hitting this base somehow affects Japanese plans. I doubt it, but it's fun, so we're going to do it. Um, yeah, and that's really it about Mindanao. We've got this infantry unit that's popping back here to Cagayan because we're basically going to defend that with most of our material. We have a core headquarters here. Like most of the generalship early in the war, it is not good. He's not terrible. We certainly saw worse last episode, but you know, Walter Sharp is not going to rise to the ranks of, rivaling Eisenhower or something over here. Um, New Britain, okay, and I said we were going to talk about Rabaul, and indeed we are. Now, Rabaul is a very interesting place early on. I find that the Japanese are fascinated with it. The Japanese AI and Japanese players are fascinated with it. Now, I think the reason that is because they can get to it, which always helps. It's a 3-4 and a 3-6, so it's nice. It's a nice, island base out here. Um, and it starts to pressure Port Moresby. Now, most Japanese players are not going to feel really comfortable coming straight to Port Moresby because, us as the allied player, this is one of our really important locations on the map. We cannot let this fall to the Japanese early. It just cuts down on any movement from southern Australia to northern Australia because we have no good railroad. So we have to do a lot of it by sea or by ocean. And so, you know, Moresby is going to be a major fortification for us, a place we're going to try to hold. I'm not going to say at all costs, but at a very high cost, and we will make it cost quite a bit for the Japanese to try to take it. Most Japanese players know that. I think the AI is programmed to know that. And so they like to come here to Rabaul. And Rabaul does a couple of things. Uh, it not only threatens Moresby here, it also, starts to just pressure south in the most obvious location that they can. Now, here's Luganville. So just to orient yourself here, Noumea, Luganville, two places we will be building up quite a bit. By coming to Rabaul here, it's the most obvious place to come south. Now, the Japanese can come here, they can come here, Fine. These are not, these are again they're archipelagos. They're not much to them. They can't build off that. I mean, they can take Baker, okay. Canton is really the first place that is even interesting for the Japanese to take. Um, you know, the Elise Islands, there's nothing here. So really, you're coming straight to Suva to Pago as a Japanese player. Suva, Pago, Pago. Now, that's not to say they can't, take a few of these little things out here, but there's just nothing worth taking. And so, looking at the map as a Japanese player, Rabaul really sticks out as a place like, oh, okay, this is where we should go. And the bigger map shows this better. The Japanese coming here, coming, potentially here. All right, fine. Now, all of these they've made this push here. Where else can they really go? Well, we've got Guam here, right? And Guam will fall. There's not much to it. Now we finally found our islands out here, right? We found the Marshall Islands, but you've got Wake and you've got Midway. Okay, that's fine. Let's just say they take those. Now, where are they going next? Where can they go? What makes sense in the Pacific? Now, obviously, they're going to be doing things over here, but in the Pacific, where can they go? Well, I mean, they could go to Pearl Harbor, but that seems like a suicide mission. Once we are ready, we have 3 carriers over here. We have a ton of cap up. We have all kinds of stuff coming from the States. It'd be interesting if they tried to do that. We have Johnston Island, some other smaller islands out here. And then, as I just showed you, all of these islands here don't really amount to much. There's just, the Japanese can take them, but it's almost like, okay, what's the point? Then we have Pago, we have Suva, we have Noumea down here, and those are interesting. But just looking at this, where's the next kind of interesting place to go? It's really right here to Rabaul, because once they're in Rabaul, they can come this way, they could come down this way and pressure Luganville. They can pressure Noumea down here from there. It becomes of just a nice staging area for them. They can get cap up. They can go bomb Port Moresby from here. They can't really bomb Moresby from too many good places. Even if they take all this, Moresby's a little far from that. It's really Rabaul. And so Rabaul is very interesting place to think about. What are we going to put there? What are we going to try to keep there? Now you see here we've got these Hudsons out here, and they are running a little naval search just to see if the Japanese are on the way. Another interesting thing we're doing is we're actually picking up this Koi battalion, the B Koi. Uh, these rifles, and we've got a troop or a plane transport coming over here and picking them up and taking them back to Port Moresby. Let's see if that's, did we set that up already? I'm just saying that off the top of my head because I'm so used to doing it. No, I guess we have not no, we have not set up Papua New Guinea yet, have we? Well, I don't know, have we? Let's go look at this again. Training. Yeah, if we have this one. Oh, no, it's 40 training. That'll always tell you that you have not set a place up. I guess if I was doing the alphabet correctly, Papa, we have not set that up yet. But we will be taking a couple of these guys coming over here and picking up this Koi force. And if we look at it here, did we set this up? No, I guess we didn't. Okay, I'm going to get off that train of thought. We have not done that yet. We'll talk about it when we talk about Port Moresby. But they will be leaving. Meanwhile, the Lark Battalion, oh, here it is. The Lark Battalion out here will be staying. And this is not a bad battalion. It's a level 49, or a level 40, an assault strength of 49. And so, you know, at least we're not leaving it completely abandoned. I have also played the game where I send a lot out here to Rabaul. As a matter of fact, I have more at Rabaul than I do at Moresby. The reason being is I just do not want to lose this because all of a sudden it really changes the game in this area of the world if the Japanese get this base. Like I said, if they build this up to a size, seven airfield, six airfield, or seven airfield, they can hit, Australia from here. So you just got to be careful. Out here at Kavieng, I think this is another group that we will be moving out. Um, let's see. We got to look at my notes really. Yeah, Kavieng, there's no engineers here. You can't really build up Kavieng, so we will be evacuating them out. At Rabaul, you do have the base force here, and so, we're building fortifications. We don't want to build up the airport or the port for the Japanese. This is big enough for our purposes. We don't need it really to go any higher. And if we do take it higher, that is good for the Japanese and probably puts even a bigger target on its back. But we will be building the fort up as we move into the game here, because I will say again, I'm just someone when I play that I really, really like to build Rabaul up. So as we get into the Let's Play, we'll be doing a little more thinking about that and talking about it. New Caledonia is next, and New Caledonia has Noumea. Noumea, one of the most important places on the map, probably a place that you had never really heard of before playing this game. I know I hadn't. Maybe if you're a world traveler or you're Australian or French, I guess this is a French base. Um, Part of the Free French command. Maybe you've heard of Noumea. I had never heard of it before this game and had no idea how important it was as one of these daisy chain islands that gets you over to the mainland of Australia. It's kind of, directly across here. What is this? Parallel with Brisbane. And so Noumea has got a little bit of industry and a little bit of resources. So, okay. It also has a force out here, an infantry unit that's French of 27. Not terrible. Um, and then we've got cargo that we're sitting over to Brisbane. This will pick up and just start running a CS back and forth to Noumea. At least that's my plan. Oh, I remember why I was going to talk about this is Cole does not have these guys set up into a task force. I think the reason for that is he's really waiting to see, how it develops. We already have supply, we have cargo and fuel coming out from the Australian mainland, and so it's okay to let these guys linger a little bit. But very quickly, you would form them up into a task force and get them over to Australia. I'm just doing it immediately because I know I'm going to do that on turn two probably. And so I formed them up. I'm calling them Cargo Noumea, setting their home port to Brisbane, pick up, supplies, probably just make it a CS for supply, a continuous supply out to Noumea. Now you have an American, the Royalty Frank. We're sending that over to LA. It's got a nice capacity, nice endurance, nice speed, pretty good cargo ship. So that's going to head over to LA. We've got a waypoint set up, to keep it out of going through the middle of the Pacific, as we've talked about before. Um, Oh yeah, you've got the Chevriel, if my French is correct. Probably not. This, actually, I should have named this. We're going to wait at Bundaberg, and it is going to wait for a task force that's going to Bundaberg. You may remember we've got a base force here at Bundaberg that we've set ready for Afate, and it's going to pick that up. Well, we're going to send over, what was that, a light cruiser? I believe it was. Oh, no, it's actually a minesweeper. Okay, but why did I? Hmm. Okay, well, it's a minesweeper. I don't. I have no idea why I thought that was a light cruiser off the top of my head, but it's a minesweeper. It's got a little AA on it, so okay, cool, whatever. It's gonna wait for these transports to pick up or transport to pick up, and then we're gonna come. Where is Afate? Well, we're gonna have to go look for it, aren't we? Why can't I remember where that is? In my old age, I'm losing my mind, losing my memory. Fate. Okay. Oh, I knew it was. Well, gosh, it's right there. It's even labeled. I hate when that happens. What was I doing? I was like clicking here, and it's right there. So yeah, we will be bringing that base force to a Fate and sending. Here it is. Sending that minesweeper over to look for mines, I guess, but it does provide a little anti-aircraft as well. Noumea, the other difference is Cole, I believe, only has the fortifications. I want to say that's true, or maybe he only has the expanding the port. Either way, I build all three. To me, Noumea is that important. It's also very close, to Australia, to the mainland. And while it will be coming under all kinds of pressure from the Japanese, from subs and maybe even surface task forces, I feel pretty confident that we can get supply and fuel out here in enough numbers to make it worthwhile. And we do have engineers on the way to Noumea. Very important. Any place where you're wanting to do more than, well, even if all you want to do is build fortifications there, you need engineers to really move it along. But if you're going to be doing a port or an airfield, you've got to get engineers to that location. Now, we are bringing engineers up here, I think maybe from New Zealand, but we will be getting as many engineers as makes sense in here to Noumea. Now, speaking of New Zealand, we're going to go there next. I did want to mention Comac. I know that some players really like to build up Comac. It's a 1-1 port, but it's got a level 7 airfield. You certainly don't want the Japanese to come take this, and we'll see. I like to have a pretty decent force at Comac because I don't see why not. I mean, when you look out here, there's only a few places we're talking about. Noumea, Comac, Luganville. We're going to build up a Fate. Mm, a lot of times I don't do a lot with a Fate, to be honest with you. I do it at Comac instead. Because, what are the chances the Japanese are going to come down here, land on a Fate? You've kind of got them surrounded at that point if you still have Luganville. Now, if you lose Luganville, I can see using a Fate as like kind of your backup here, but I have no intention of losing Luganville. So I don't know. It's a question. We're following the spreadsheet here, but we'll talk a lot more about some of these decisions. Comac is definitely a place that I generally build up, just like Rabaul. Um, okay, and I guess that really then covers New Caledonia. Let's go down here to New Zealand. And what's going on at New Zealand? Well, New Zealand can become extremely important. Now, it's not right at the start, because right at the start, we're trying to build this, wall, this picket fence, this iron crescent, whatever we've called it. We're trying to build that to bring our task forces this way. Well, I can tell you if things start going poorly for you, then as I go out here to the right, then your next line of your fence goes all the way down to Tahiti. You set up a refueling station, rearming station, everything that you can stuff into Tahiti, and it comes straight across here to Auckland. Auckland is also very good for supplying these smaller islands out here. So Noumea, you see, and Suva, and Savi, and Pago. I mean, these are your main places that you're going to have along this line, the main places the Japanese would like to breach into. And if you look at Auckland, it is very nicely positioned. It's safe down here, or safer, certainly than off the coast of Australia. So many times you'll think, well, we'll run this out of Sydney, we'll run this out of Brisbane. Okay, well, if you get under severe submarine or surface task force problems out here from the Japanese, then Auckland is a very nice choice to resupply. And so, there's all kinds of stuff that's out here in New Zealand. We've organized it all. Uh, if you look, we've got, some battalions that are fine. I mean, they're not huge. This is only an assault strength of 7. We will be railing some things up here to Auckland, like from Hamilton. This is an armored force with a 32. Where's it going? Auckland. It's Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch. I will tell you, Blenheim can be built up, but really it's those three, and really the big two are Wellington and Auckland. Okay. Looking down through my notes here, in Auckland, we're building everything. We are sending those engineers to Noumea from Auckland. So if we look at these guys here, they are headed to Noumea. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to bring these guys up is because in this setup, we set up a task force, there it is, um, that is amphibious. Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Let's make sure I did this right. Yep. Okay. We need to name these guys. Let's do transport Nomaya. So we set up this transport. It's not a transport task force. Actually, it's an amphibious task force. Amphib to Nomaya. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is, okay, this is all normal, right? We set up the amphibious task force, we dock it, we start to load troops. Great. What's the special case here? When troops go onto an amphibious task force, instead of putting them in strategic move, like you will for transports, where you're going from friendly base to friendly base, when you're putting troops on an amphibious task force, you leave them in combat mode. And if you start to think out into the future of why that would be just game wise, I'm not talking about in the real world, but for the game, why that would be, is because later on, when you're doing amphibious landings on islands that maybe are Japanese islands, you're going to want these guys in immediate combat mode, right? So when you put them on transports, you're basically telling the game regular transports, and the mission is transport. You're telling the game we're going to another friendly base. And so these guys pack up, they get all their stuff ready, they, uh, get all their suits pressed and put them in the luggage, and they're ready to go. When these guys get on amphibious task forces, they're ready for combat. And so you may have been like, "Hey, wait a minute, what's going on?" When you went to load, when you pulled up this transport and hit load troops, you may have said, what's going on? Why are these guys? It says they're not in combat mode, right? If you switched it over to strategic move, it will say these guys are not in combat mode. You'd be like, that's confusing because when we put them on transport, they are in strategic move. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because that's something different that we haven't done is start loading troops onto amphibious task forces. And it's a little bit different. You keep them in combat mode. The Achilles will be coming with here. We've got the light cruiser Achilles down here. Um, and so, what's this ship all about? It's a New Zealand ship. It flies under that flag. It's got really good anti-aircraft, 212. I say really good. It's good for a light cruiser, right? It's early in the game, as I said, it's kind of 1 to 700. 212's not too bad. And so we're going to be taking that along to Nomaya just on the off chance that we maybe come under some kind of Japanese air attack. Seems unlikely very early, but you know, unlikely. You don't want to have it happen and say, "Oh gosh, I remember that one time." That's all unlikely means in this game. Liberty Glow, the Liberty Glow. We have got the Liberty Glow headed to Perth. Here are some tankers that we have going to LA. We've got, oh gosh, did I hit Port Kembla? I'm sorry you guys had to see that because this is the bane of my existence when setting up Australia is I do this quite often where I hit Port Kembla because the word Sydney is right next to it. This is supposed to be going to Sydney. And sure enough, I hit Port Kimball when I was setting that up. Okay. Um, More American task forces back to LA. Good capacity, good endurance, not too bad speed. And here's the Liberty Glow. So this is an interesting one, right? We are taking this all the way around the bottom of the continent, around Tasmania, and around southern Australia, all the way to Perth, and then we're going to convert it into one of those AKE tenders. Um, Christchurch, we had some pilots and planes there that we are pulling more pilots and planes. I think the reason for that is in New Zealand, the New Zealand Air Force, you're not going to have a massive demand for a certain kind of plane. You can build these guys up that you already have. So we're doing that out of Christchurch. Now, if we look at Christchurch, you see, we've got a assault value of 44 here and they will be at Christchurch. We've got an assault value of 7, but then we have a couple of other things from other parts of the island coming to Christchurch. You know, last ditch effort. If the Japanese have you under pressure at Auckland and you have to rely on Christchurch, might be time to say we have a big problem. So anyway, but you always build these things up. You just never know. Wellington, we have, a task force going to Cristobal, which is through the Panama Canal. And where are these guys? Oh, so at Wellington, we have cargo going out to Pago Pago. All right. As a matter of fact, I do believe I will set this up as continuous supply. Why did that happen? Oh, I can't do it. And the reason why is, and this is another thing I wanted to point out. So these guys are at Wellington now. They're loading up supply. They're going to Pago Pago. Then they're returning to Auckland. And the reason is it just cuts down on the time. It's a turn or two. And the supply at Wellington and at Auckland aren't going to be that different. Just bring them into Auckland, fill them up again. So when they come back to Auckland, we've got it listed as cargo pago. When it comes back into Auckland, we will then set that up as a continuous supply. Whenever you change the home port, you could not do continuous supply, okay, until it has returned to that home port. So just something to keep in mind. Also down here at Wellington, we are converting the Santa Rita. What else do we have here? Oh, we have a troop transport. Okay, it's nothing too interesting about that. Um, and yeah, then I put we have several coming back to Auckland, and that's why Savi. So we're going to take some supplies out to Savi, come back to Auckland. We're going to take some. Oh, this is the group going out to Cristobal. So these are American, and you see here cargo Eastern USA. The reason I put that is we're going to Cristobal and we're going to make that its home port. Now, it is not loading up supplies at Cristobal to take to the eastern US. So we're kind of doing this in reverse, and it's just because I know how I play the game. And so I know that if these guys are sitting at Cristobal, that I'm running them up to the eastern US and bringing supplies down to Cristobal. I would not be doing the opposite, right? Because Eastern USA has, I think, 100,000 supply right now. So you're not going to be taking supply from Cristobal to Eastern US. This just tells me when they get to Cristobal, oh, they're going to be making that run. So when they get to Cristobal, I'll set the home port as Eastern US and change the name of this to Cargo Cristobal. And then they'll just go back and forth. I'll probably do that as a continuous supply. So I wanted to show you that. And then I think these guys, yes, Tahiti. So the Arizonian, we have another one that's loading up. It's going to Tahiti, coming back to Auckland. So all three of these we will set up as continuous supply when they get back to Auckland. Then we have a couple of minesweepers. I think one of these we set up to Suva. Yeah, we do. So we're starting to kind of stock up some of these islands here. We're sending them supplies. We're starting to send them some equipment. And you can always do that through Auckland. If the heat gets too hot here off Brisbane, Um, to the east, you can always go south. You can always do that with Sydney. Bring it to Auckland first and then take it back up. It takes a little more time, but many times it can be worth it. I know certain players don't even really, I mean, they defend these islands, don't get me wrong, but they don't worry about making this convoy area that I've been talking a lot about to get to Australia. They run their convoys south down by Auckland, maybe just to the northern tip of New Zealand, right from the start. So, it's something you can think about. It's obviously much safer. It does take time, and over the course of a game, it may cost you a trip or two. But it may be worth it as opposed to losing an entire task force. And with that, I think we've reached the end of this episode, this setup, or at least I've covered all the things I thought were interesting. The Rabaul thing, we'll be talking a lot more about that. We've got the B-17s that are flying out of Mindanao, out of Cagayan, that will be coming over here to hit Babbledob. We talked about Wake Island, and we actually found the Marshall Islands after a few starts and stops. And there's Wake, so that'll be an interesting place. Maybe with these subs, we can pick something off. And we've set up New Zealand. And next time, we're going to get into the off map bases, which, even though they're called off map, are very, very important when it comes to this game, War in the Pacific. So, as always, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoyed it. I love talking about this stuff. I hope I'm continuing to help you learn the game as we go. By at this point, if you've been following along, if you've been setting up, you're probably really starting to get the game and you're having your own ideas. And so each time I just try to show you some new things or things we haven't done before. But we're very quickly here getting to the end when we can go ahead and play out the first turn. And that will be a lot of fun. So, anyway, for Strategy Gaming Dojo, thank you so much. I'll talk to you next time.